go back to your roots to discover who you are, to find out, right? Stop looking outward, go within, right? There's too much media around us. There's too much social media. There's too much TV. There's too much Netflixing. There's too many new things. Oh, here's a new fasting you gotta do. Here's a new thing you must do. Stop focusing on the new. Go back to what's within the ancient times and rediscover that. You might find your practice. You probably will. But it has to start with every day willing to commit, creating a space for yourself where you're complete quiet. You're not looking at your phone. You're focusing on a practice that allows you to be present. That is the beginning of your journey. Then through that, you will find which practice is right for you. Then you'll look for that studio. You'll look for that teacher.
Welcome to The Wild Show with your hosts, Will Chang, Lee Chang, and Andrew Su. Hi, this is Will Chang, and as always, I have my co-hosts Lee Chang and Andrew Su with me.
Hey guys.
What's up? Good to be here.
Today we have our friend Gene Lee. Gene is the founder and CEO of Better Me NYC, where he teaches communities to raise awareness and find inner peace through breath and meditation. Gene has taught and arranged events for tens of thousands of participants globally, including at events such as Tze San Sze Monastery in Hong Kong and the Feel Good Festival in Shanghai, and has worked with corporate clients such as NIKE and WeWork. Before starting Better Me NYC, Gene worked in investment banking and wealth management, leading expansion efforts in Asia at JPMorgan, HSBC, and BBVA. Welcome, Gene.
Hi, thanks guys.
What is Better Me NYC?
For lack of a better word, it's really just a community. At least that's how it began. When I first started this project, it was merely a passion project. It was my platform, kind of like what you guys are doing now, to see the things I wanted to say through yoga. It began as just yoga. Yoga events was a great way for me to communicate and share the things I learned in mindfulness. And largely it was around love and compassion. And because love and compassion had changed quite a bit in terms of the way I view the world, I used it as a platform to really just share with society how you can be a little bit more compassionate towards people around you. Because I think that slogan, Better Me, is a better version of me for you. It's not just better me, right? Because I believe in order to impact society or to impact people around you, you want to be the best version of yourself for the people that you love. So that's how it began. Roll it, I think, is almost like 4.5 years or like almost 5 years now. We are now a B2C and B2B company that services corporate clients in the health and wellness space. So we work with small, medium enterprises to Fortune 500s on teaching them health and wellness knowledges. And we also work with community. So it could be just a student off the street who don't have enough money or don't want to pay like a sky high price who just wants to join a health and wellness community. We offer that too. We also offer that to executives and just CEO level entrepreneurs. So I fly around the region all the time, around Asia, whether it's to Shanghai, to Kunming, to Beijing, Tokyo, Bali. It's mainly around this region, basically leading these kind of health and wellness workshops and retreats. We also have teachers that are part of the Better Me community, and they go out and teach on behalf of Better. And right now, our knowledges that we share range all the way from yoga to breathwork, to cacao ceremonies, to meditation, to mindfulness, aesthetic dance. So we keep on coming up with new and innovative and fun, if you will, health and wellness experience, but mainly around mindfulness.
There's so many questions I wanted to ask you about wellness and all those different specific topics. Before we get into that, I wanted to bring us back a little bit to talk about your journey from iBanking in Hong Kong to wellness. Can you talk us through that story?
Yes. I was in finance for basically 25 years of my life, and that was the only career I ever knew. So the moment I graduated from college, I was in banking. During this journey, right, I think only maybe like 15 years ago, there was no such thing as health and wellness. You can't even talk about your mental health. Because the moment you talk about you have an issue and you're mentally, you're never getting promoted and they're probably going to send you off, maybe even fire you. So it's been a very short journey in terms of what we see health and wellness as today, or even having the ability to talk about our mental health. When I was in banking, the only way I could deal with stress or that we knew of in our generation was to either exercise or drink or party. That was our health and wellness. Every weekend, every Friday, we would go completely nuts. We'll drink like crazy. We'll go to the gym. We'll hit the gym. We'll run, play tennis, surf, what have you, do all these kind of exercise just to get out of the way and then crash on Sunday because Monday is about to show up. That's sort of the Monday blues, right? So that was a large part of the 25 years of my life. And I did that every week. And it was not until I think it was around 6, right? I think Lehman blew up around 2009. So leading into before the Lehman blow up, the market was doing very, very well. And we were hitting the new heights. Our teams were making so much money. It was just a bull market for all of us. And at that time, I had two bosses, and they were the co-heads of our department. I was in derivatives back then, equity derivatives. And they were very, very young. They were both very young. They were like 35 years old. They were co-heads, global co-heads. And I remember just having a casual conversation with them over a offsite we had, and just to get to know them. And one boss came up to me and says, just very openly, he says, you know what? I used to have cancer and my right neck got cut off. And it was just that casual. And I was like, okay, that's kind of brave to talk about having one of your testicles cut off. And very shortly after that, I saw the other co-head, I think throat cancer, gum cancer, but he would still come to work. And he literally lost 1/3 of his weight within a time span of 2 to 3 weeks. This is how thin he was. He was walking around the trading floor. We would wear like suits, right? And you could just see his pants just floating around. Like there was nothing underneath the backside. He had no butt. That's how thin he became. And I remember I was just sitting there. I was looking at him. He looked like he was half dead. I think I was 29 years old. And I looked at him and I said, why is he still at work? Why is he so committed? He should be in a hospital. He should be out here. He can die anytime. He looks so frail. And at that moment, I asked myself, is this what I'm headed for? And then a few months later, I had a female colleague who was pregnant. Back then in sales and trading, people don't take time off even when they're pregnant. So they're saying they're trading. Sales and trading is the most aggressive job you can have in an investment bank. And she sat through it. And one day she was in so much pain that in her stomach, right? But she refused to leave the trading floor. And she sat there and bled out and lost her baby. Years later, we asked why. And she says, you know what? If my boss can do it, so can I. So because her boss was pregnant, basically treated through her pregnancy and was able to survive, she thought that she was built in the same way. So time and time like that. And then after Lehman blew up, I remember I witnessed a few colleagues suicide. No one ever talks about it because it's taboo, but I think it has to do with mental health and depression. And time and time again, these kind of things just unfolded in my life, right? When I was in investment banking. So I was really questioning. I was asking myself, is there a better way out? Right? Is this what we're all headed for? What we're all doomed for? Alcoholics and abusive behaviors. Banking, 25 years in it, trust me, it was very, very abusive in language and in physical violence, what have you. So years later, towards the kind of like I guess I wouldn't call it peak, but certainly I was highest in my rank, managing the regional Asian business. It's funny, it's my younger brother, who's also an FF brother. His name is Alex. He was like, hey, you want to meditate? I mean, we're about to go out to party. If you guys know about this really cool restaurant called Yardbird back then, we would go every Friday. But before we had gone out, he's like, hey, you want to meditate? Because he had just came out from New York, right? He was in NYU, and I think Headspace was all the rave then. I think that was like, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, right? And I'm like, we're going to meditate before we go out. It's like, yeah, it's really in right now. It's a thing. I was like, okay, fine, let's try it. And we had like a joint meditation, it was like a guided meditation. Like 3 of us were just sitting here. And I remember after that meditation, it had a pretty profound effect on me. I don't know. I just felt that everything was calm and my sympathetic nervous system had completely just calmed down and I was in complete control. And I just felt really, really different. But after that, I never meditated again. It was just one-off experience in like everything in life back then. So I did that and I never touched it again. And then he got me kind of into yoga. It's always my younger brother. He's 11 years old, younger than I am. He was into all these like new things. Like, yeah, yoga is a thing now. Let's go do yoga. So I was like, okay, whatever, I'll try. I'm a pretty open person. I did yoga with him. And then I met my ex-wife at work and then she's like, yeah, yoga is the thing now. Let's all go do yoga. So I was going to do yoga. I was going to hot yoga, right? And I just remember I was like sweating like crazy. I didn't enjoy it at all. But I was like the good boyfriend. So I showed up. And I showed up until the point that I had found a teacher that I really resonated with, this Australian lady. So I would then start showing up to her class by myself. And I think I did that for a few years, up to the point that she left and she had gone back to Australia. And once again, I just stopped. I was like, oh, well, the teacher that I really like is gone. I don't really care much for yoga and all this. So I just didn't do it. And until actually it was a combination of things that began this journey. And you can stop me anytime you want to, because this is a longer conversation. It was during my divorce. During my divorce, I was going through, I think what most people go through. It was a very, very difficult time. And I felt extremely guilty about the whole situation. Although I wasn't married for too long, I just carried a lot of kind of baggages with me coming out from the divorce. And I knew that it was time to become better, right? So that was the thought of becoming a better version of myself began at that moment that, okay, well, I suffered a failure in my marriage. There must be something I can do in bettering myself. So therefore, my next relationship, if I ever have one, it'll progress. It'll be better. But I didn't know how to, right? Like most Americans do, the first thing you do is you go buy a book and start reading self-help, what have you. So on textbook, I knew what to do. As I had gone through this, I had an idea of what better meant. And so I tried, right? With relationships, with friendships and what have you. But only to realize in a very short period of time that it didn't get better. I was doing everything right. I was doing everything according to the book, if you will, but it didn't get better. And I didn't know how to fix it. I just didn't know how to fix it. I thought this is the best thing I have. And it was not until I had gone into the next relationship. And once again, yoga was a big part of it as my then ex really loved doing yoga. And so I went religiously, but not because I loved yoga, because I loved her. And so therefore I went. And once again, I found a teacher that I really liked. It always starts with a love story, by the way. I found this one teacher. He's just like bald, like a Swedish guy, really tall, really weird looking, but I really enjoyed doing yoga with him. And I enjoyed it so much that I really just started doing it all the time with him, even when my girlfriend wasn't around. So kind of like years into this relationship, right? I had then asked my ex-girlfriend, I said, do you really love money? And she's like, no. I said, well, why are you in banking? She says, I don't really know why. And I said, you know what might be interesting is that why don't you quit finance and go into health and wellness to become a yoga teacher? Because you have the right postures, you have the right alignment. And at that moment, I thought that the yoga business was going to be big. I thought wellness was coming, right? I just thought like, wow, this is really, really cool. I think there's absolutely space for health and wellness before people talked about it. So that summer, so we were living in Hong Kong. I said, okay, why don't we go all around the world and check out the latest wellness studios out there and see if there's anything cool. If there's anything cool, we'll bring it back. So we went all around. We were in LA, New York, what have you. And we tried everything. It was like hip hop yoga. We tried bar, pink salt yoga, you name it. We tried it. Everything was a touch and go. Everything's like, wow, that's so cool. That's so creative. That's so innovative. But nothing really stuck once again. So the last 3 days of our trip, we were just around Soho, just kind of spent like ending our summer holiday. And I need to use the toilet. And on the corner of my right eye, I saw a place called Golden Bridge. I said, baby, can we go in there? I need to use the toilet. Can you just speak to the guy up front? And sure enough, we walked in. It turned out to be another yoga studio, a fairly spiritual one, a Kundalini yoga studio. If you guys know anything about Kundalini, are those that dress in white and they're shaking all over. I know how Hollywood vilifies them. They look like a cult, basically. So we walked in. I used the toilet, and there was this one guy. There's an African-American gentleman who's taller than me. He's probably like 6'3", and a white turban on and a white shawl. And as I walked past him, the shawl was split on the side. He was wearing this cutoff tie-dye t-shirt and a pair of cutoff jeans. So I thought, oh, that looks kind of interesting. So I walked up to him and he towered over me. I said, what's your journey? And he looked at me and he said, oh, funny you should ask. I used to be a model in Paris. I used to be off the drugs and highlight, but then I found yoga selling me. So I looked at him like, what are you talking, bro? What are you talking about yoga selling you? I do yoga all the time. What are you talking about changing you? I don't care, whatever, man. This is an interesting story, but anyways, we have 3 days left in New York. Did we miss anyone? So he looks at me. He goes, oh, you didn't go see Dharma? I said, Dharma. Oh, Dharma yoga. I practice Dharma yoga in Hong Kong all the time with my then girlfriend. I just thought it was some dead Indian guy. First of all, he's not dead. And second of all, he's not Indian. He's Brazilian. He's in Midtown. You should go visit him. I was like, okay. I used to see these photos that my yoga teacher would bring in. Dharma, who's like the founder of Dharma yoga. He looked Indian, right? He would sit in Central Park on a rock and he'd meditate from the 70s, with big beats. He just looked really ancient. I just thought, this guy must be dead. So I show up to Midtown. I think it was like fairly near Flatiron. And there he was. Right? I walk in and it doesn't look anything like any yoga studio I've ever been in. It's basically an ashram. So there he was. I saw him there. There's this guy I was seeing the photo all the time. And he shows up. This dude's like, I don't know, like 4'8". He's like this tiny midget. And I'm like, my God, finally I meet this dude. In my mind, I create this massive story about this guru. And here he is. And he fits the whole profile. He didn't speak much English. He's just super gentle. He's like a small Indian looking guy who's actually Brazilian. So I walk in and, he's there and it's just a regular Thursday afternoon, if I remember correctly. We're just doing it right. So he starts coming over. He starts adjusting me on this really basic pose, right? Which is like a right twist, right? So he starts adjusting me and he's adjusting my girlfriend. We just did an hour session with him. And after that session, we were just really, really both really quiet. And we didn't have much to say to each other. We didn't have much to say to him. And we left when we went back to the hotel. And we were just sitting on our beds and we were pretty quiet. And all of a sudden I said, do you feel that? And she's like, yes. And I was like, I think there's something there. We should go back. And she's like, yes, we should definitely go back. So we didn't know what was going on, but something had changed in us, something had opened us. So we went back for the next 2 days, just doing yoga with Dharma. And on the third day, coming back from New York to Hong Kong, our spiritual journey began together. It sounds a little bit like, wow, how's that even possible? But let me define kind of the word spiritual for you guys in terms of how I define it, right? So every time we talk about spirituality, I think in the West, a lot of people are a little bit scared, right? For me, and who grew up in Hong Kong, it's very normal because I go to the temple all the time. There's a money god during Chinese New Year. Spirituality for us that grew up on this part of the world is very, very normal. There's always a god. There's always somebody bigger. There's always a sanpai on the floor which you can't kick or you can't offend. But the word spirituality for us at that very moment meant that we want to go within. We want to find inner peace. We want to do the inner work. So what it translated into is that we didn't want to have the normal life we have anymore, which is constantly going out and like drinking, eating, just like killing time and sell yourself to really cheap thrills. We just wanted to work what's within. And at that moment, I didn't really understand the term inner work either. I just knew that I wanted to practice. I want to find the inner peace. I want to have this feeling of inner peace. At that moment, my then ex went back to Dharma right away to train under, because she's like, I found it. This is it for me. She knew right away. She went back and she had done many, many trainings. But at that moment, I was still in finance and I wasn't ready, or I didn't think I wanted to be a yoga teacher anyways. But I knew I wanted the knowledge that I'd gotten from him. And so I interviewed, I think there was only like 5 Dharma teachers in Hong Kong at that time. And none of them really resonated with me apart from one guy who was in private equity. And I looked at him and I said, hey, we're both in finance. Like, why do you study under Dharma and you never became a yoga teacher? What do you get from him? And he just looked at me and he says, well, you just let go. I'm like, what am I letting go of? He said, you just don't get as angry. I'm like, that's it? He's like, yeah. I'm like, that can't be the one thing that I'm getting from this guru. Just letting go, just not getting mad. That was it. Great answer, but not enough data. So, I'm a banker mentality. I'm doing my research. I'm going asking different people for opinions. And I went on YouTube and I watched a documentary about him. And then like everyone on his documentary is like crying. I was like, all right, I met this guy, Dharma, changed my life. He opened me up. I was like, okay, there's something there. I don't know what it is. I'm going to go train under, or I'm going to do this 200-hour teacher training. He looks pretty legit. He's been around for a long, long time. The dude's like, he's 84 years old this year. There's something. I don't care. So I go and I pay a lot of money to do this training, right? And I show up. And of course, there's many different types of people. There's young people, there's older people. There are like billionaire hedge fund guys there, entrepreneurs. I'm like, wow, this is really interesting. You're meeting all walks of life who just wants to learn from this guy. And we're just learning yoga once again, right? It's not like, oh, you got to be self-realized. You got to be, enlightened. It's just learning yoga. Throughout this training, it was really difficult. You'd wake up like at 5 a.m. and you have to clean the toilet. It was like going to a monastery, like a monk. I went out to Shaolin, so I know that life, right? You wake up early and you're doing Kung Fu. You're doing like finger press ups. I don't know, like punching the rocks. And we did that for 2 weeks and it would start at 5 a.m. It wouldn't end until like 12 at midnight, right? Mind you, Midtown. So it was like grueling 18 hours of yoga every day, listening to yoga philosophy, learning about anatomy, learn about bone structures, everything. But at the end of that training, although he never talked really about like this whole love and compassion thing, what I did get out of it was all the knowledge that he taught. It wasn't really clear because his English wasn't great, but there was a menu to it. So it was up to interpretation, basically, what you get from this training. And what I got from the training was that it truly opened up my heart. That's how I felt. So for the first time in my 30-something years, right, almost 40, I saw the world very, very differently coming out of that training, at least with the world that I call the society that I live in. That finally, I looked at people for who they are, at their soul, if you will, rather than quantifying people, say, oh, you're successful because you're a billionaire. You're successful because you graduated from Harvard. All these kind of society, the way they molded us. The moment I started looking at people through who they are and their soul, if you will, you saw a complete different light. You just value people in a very, very different way. You value people for their values. You value people for their goodness, and you value people for their decency and not about their ranking or their social, whatever, net worth or what have you. So I came back, I had all this knowledge, and mind you, I was still in banking. I was like, well, what am I going to do with all this, right? I got to use it. I just knew I had all this stuff within me, that these ideas, and I'm a fairly creative person. I like to build things, right? So I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to build a passion project, what is known as Better Me Now. And I said, okay, I'm going to do these events, and I'm going to use these curated wellness events, and I'm going to spread some knowledge out and share about what I learned about love and compassion, because I just thought that this is just a great way to kind of share this knowledge out. It was for a nonprofit. I was just doing it. I would like raise all this money and then I'll donate small sums of it to where catastrophes that happened around the world. And that's the beginning of it. Now, I'm going to stop there for a moment, right? Because then I had a conversation with one of Dharma's most senior student, and his name is Andre Ram. He's younger than me. He's Colombian, and I think he's a fairly wise person. And at that moment, as I was beginning this journey, I would read on Instagram, like these yogis talk about love, purification, self-realization. What the fuck are these guys talking? Like they're writing about all this like mindfulness things, like all gibberish, universal thing. So I sat down with Andre and I said, Andre, did the training, got the knowledge, don't really know how to use it. Let's really go in depth and really talk about a few things that's been on my mind. So the first thing I asked Andre, I said, what does purification mean? So I'm going to ask the three of you now. Give me your interpretation. And there's no wrong answer. What is purification?
I can go first. For a definition, my guess would be trying to remove assumptions so you can see things a bit more clearly for what they are. That's my guess.
I think in the context of this conversation, I'd imagine it's removing toxins, whether it's ways of thinking or ways of treating your body or emotions.
So I'd probably say close to what Andrew said. I think it's more about removing, I guess, external factors that might affect how you see the world. So being able to be very connected to your personal beliefs and not be affected by the outside forces.
So I would say all three of these answers are really great answers. My first answer to Andre was, do I stop drinking, smoking, and stop watching porn? He's like, no, but you should still do that. But no, that's the truth. I actually said that, believe it or not. Like the dumbest answer, but it's okay. So each of you said it actually quite correctly. And the way I would put it is this. As I'm looking at the three of you, right, apart from what you're wearing, your hairstyle, or where you studied or what have you, if I were to just kind of remove what's on the external, the three of you is just a sum of all the trauma triggers and issues and happiness you've ever experienced in life. That is who Will is. That's what Lee is. That's what Andrew is. You're just a sum of these experiences. So, for example, do each of you have a glass of water in front of you?
I have a empty glass of water.
I have a bottle. Yep.
Everyone got water?
Lee's got a beer.
A beer? Okay. So let's talk about that glass of water you're having, right? So, Will, how's that drink you're having? Can you just tell me how it tastes?
It tastes good because it's just water.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about Lee?
I actually do have water. I'd say it's familiar and it's clean. Like doesn't make me think twice when I drink it.
And Andrew?
I've got tea. It's very comforting. Very nice.
Okay. So I have a glass of water in front of me. Sorry, Andrew, finish first. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's all.
So I have a glass of water in front of me. It's the shittiest water I've ever had, but it doesn't matter. It's Hong Kong, right? I'm paying for shitty water. So what I'm trying to tell you is up to this very moment, as the four of us are having a conversation, right? The only reality you've ever experienced up to this very moment is your own. We might all be sharing the same glass of water, but there's like 4 different experiences around it. Some of you feel it's safe. Some of you feel like it's clean. Some of you feel like it's comforting. For me, it doesn't move the needle. It's shit. So what I'm trying to tell you is what purification basically is, right? And there's no wrong answer. So each one of you have basically pretty much the right answer, but it's to remove these blockages that's within us, to allow us to become the person that we want to be. How many of you don't do yoga in this room? Why don't you do yoga, Andrew?
It just hasn't fit. I do a bunch of other athletic stuff, and so it hasn't fit for me. I haven't had a need. I did Tai Chi for 6 months, though, and I think it might have done a similar thing from what I heard talking to another friend who was in a very stressful situation.
Okay. So you don't do yoga because, like, you just don't see the point, right?
Yeah, but I actually took a note that another thing is I might not have found the right teacher, but I really don't currently have the time for me. Yeah.
Okay. What about Lee? You do yoga?
Not regularly. It's funny. I've had spurts over the years where I'm like, I know what the benefits are, and I'll force myself to go for a short period of time. I'll go a few times a week. I would say, I think physically it was very helpful in terms of being in tune with my body, stretching, etc. I think on the mindfulness part is where it could be also, for lack of a better, maybe it wasn't the point of the core yoga in the States. It's not about like mindfulness. It's not about maybe that piece, but I'm very curious about it, whether it's through yoga or other means of finding more like connectivity to yourself, if you will. And what about you, Will? Do you?
I do yoga once a week, but I do it because I can't raise my arms above my head. So it's more just like flexibility and posture thing, but not really anything else.
Okay. Well, actually, I was just looking for a simple answer, but that's great. Thank you, guys. Most people, when I ask them, why don't you do yoga? They're like, I can't touch my toes. I'm like, isn't that the whole fucking point? But what I'm trying to say is this, right? It's not about doing yoga or not doing yoga. I couldn't give two shits if you guys do yoga or not. But what it is about is that most people will give me this reason of why they don't do it. And the only thing that's really stopping them is from them putting on their 2 feet onto a mat. And that's it, right? Whether you can do pose or not, it doesn't matter. Just step onto the mat and you can start doing yoga now, right? So it's the same thing about purification. Like we're filled with all these traumas and triggers and experiences that we built up throughout our entire lives. And now they have crystallized and become blockages, right? We're our own worst enemy. We're the ones telling ourselves, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm overly judgmental. Oh, I'm shit. Like I hold myself at just such a high standard. I performed really bad today at a tennis game. I did really bad on the basketball court today. Fuck, I should have gotten that shot. I should have done this, should have done that, da, 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 da. So purification merely means that let's take out all these blockages one by one and put it outside so that we can become the person that we aspire to be and stop holding yourself back. So that was the number one thing that I had to do, even for myself, was to take out all these blockages that I had learned throughout my childhood, through my years in banking, about judging myself, telling myself I'm not good enough, constantly like putting a lot of pressure on myself, saying, I can't get that, I can't get that. Well, that's the first thing. Now, the second question I'm going to I asked Andre at that point is, what is self-realization?
It's who you are after the blockages are gone. That's my guess.
It's who you are, removing all of what society tells you that you should be.
Yeah, I think between the two of them is probably what I'd say too.
So once again, really great answers. So I will give you an analogy of how I'm going to put it. I'm sure you guys do. Black Lives Matter. His name was George
Floyd.
Yeah, George Floyd, right? Do you guys remember the police's name that killed him? I used to remember because I used to follow the news. Anyways, let's talk about that incident. Let's talk about the divorce then. Let's talk about my divorce, right? Easier. For those of you who are not married yet, this might be a good advice. So when I got divorced, right, I asked myself, like, what the hell happened? I went through so much hardship just to be with her, just to, like go through this entire process, get the ring, get enough like courage to ask her to marry me, put on this massive show, his wedding, getting all of my friends and parents together. It was just a lot of work. But when I had gotten divorced, I asked myself, how did I get here? How do I love someone so dearly that I'm willing to commit the rest of my life, break up with me or break up together? And before that divorce, there was an argument. It was just an argument. Actually, it was a very, very small argument that led up to it. Right? That's the crazy part. And before that, there was a little bit of unhappiness maybe after we got married, a little bickering, a little bit of change in personality. And before that, there was celebration, proposal of a ring, everyone's happy, big parties, everyone's crying, everyone's just like, oh my God, we're getting married. And before that, we met in the bank and we were just dating. We were so in love. We were like, oh my God, the best thing that ever happened. So if you look at this journey, and this is probably a very typical journey of any relationship, how did I start from really, really being intrigued, mesmerized with this person, all the way to hating this person dearly, someone that I can't even see, can't even face anymore? So in this journey of relationship, at every point, the question I have to ask myself was I conscious? Was I present? Did I know what I was doing throughout this whole relationship? Or did I live in my mind? If I was actually present and conscious at every part of the relationship, how would I allow this relationship to go from being married and being dearly in love to a divorce? In anyone in the right mind, why would he let it get from such a loving and compassionate relationship all the way to a complete hatred and division of two people? So I want to use this example because that's exactly what self-realization is. Self-realization is just to be present, to know that we are just here and having this conversation between the four of us, that we are not living in here. We're not creating these crazy stories where we're suffering within our mind, that we're conscious, we're present for our relationship, we're present for our partner, right? At every moment, we are here living together in union. So, the word yoga, right? In LA, in New York, in the West, yoga is this. Oh yeah, yoga. Yeah. Handstand, all the fucking tree pose. That's not yoga. That's what the West made yoga into. Yoga means what we just did, all that. That's like an exercise. Yoga means the union of the mind. When this is organized, your mind, when this is quiet, all the answers are within. When you're not suffering here, where you're not creating these crazy ass stories that, I might get fired from a bank. Oh, this person says some shit about me. This is really affecting me. This is all in your mind. When I was in the bank, I would live through all these kind of traumatic experiences, especially about to get fired, right? Like it's firing time and you're going to get fired. You're like living with, oh my God, when is the last day? When am I going to get called into the office? But then I go through the whole thing. I never get fired. For 25 years, I've never been fired. I'm like, what the fuck? I thought I would get fired at every new job I went into. And I suffered for those 25 years for it never to happen. So that is self-realization, is do you truly understand yourself? Because if you truly understand yourself, I promise you, you'll never make the same mistake in life ever again. You're not that mosquito. You're not that bee hitting the window constantly trying to get out. You're that bee trying to get out because you don't understand yourself. It's not because you read a better book. It's have you spent time on listening to what's within, right? Your parents tell you, you should be a certain way, right? Or Lee or Andrew, your parents, you have to be this person. You have to be Chinese. You have to be good to your elders. You have to do this. You have to do that. You have to be, a lawyer, a banker, a doctor. I don't know what it is these days. But have you ever really listened to yourself and really truly understand yourself? That's what people call a calling, right? That's not a calling. That's just finally hearing what's within you. Because if you know yourself well, I promise you, this journey that you're about to embark on will be very enjoyable.
So, this is great. It's funny. I was just texting Andrew right now as you were speaking. We're like, this is like free therapy. This is fucking
with
awesome.
cursing.
I don't get paid for it. It's okay.
So back to what you just saying, right? So is because knowing what you want is also, to me, there's kind of being present and then also knowing what you want. So I'm curious, like, what if I don't know what I want? Like, I can live in the present and try to enjoy whether I'm outside of the trees with like nature, but then I don't know where I'm trying to go. I guess like, what is the progression? So for you, was it that this completely like kind of opened up like your realization and you knew exactly who you were, where you wanted to go? Or this was just like the first step?
Have you heard of the Bhagavad Gita?
No, I haven't.
So Bhagavad Gita is kind of like the Bible for Hinduism, right? It's a book that every yoga teacher is a prerequisite you have to read before you become a yoga teacher. And as I was reading the Bhagavad Gita, I bought Cliff Notes and like I went on YouTube for the dumb version. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, what the hell am I reading? About Krishna, Arjuna, the Hindu gods, like the brothers killing each other. And Arjuna's asking, why are we going to war? Why are we hating on each other? Why can't we're supposed to be brothers. Why are we fighting? In it, there's an excerpt that talks about Hanuman. So Hanuman is a monkey king, as we know in China. So Hanuman exists in most Asian culture. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Hanuman asked Krishna, who's the god above him, the deity. And Hanuman represents complete faith and complete surrender to loyalty. And one day Hanuman went to Krishna and asked, Krishna, I don't understand why I'm so damn loyal to you. I'm just so loyal to you. I don't know why. And Krishna looked at Hanuman and said, Hanuman, it's okay. When you don't know, just be. But when you do finally understand, you become one. So what I'm trying to say, Lee, is this. It's okay not to know. And when you don't know, you just be, right? As you are. You're just living this life. You're being. But when you do know, then you become one with that person that you're supposed to be. So even between the four of us, at four different realities we live in, we talk about the multiverse. This is a multiverse. We all live in one universe, but we have complete different realities of it. Like, Lee, I don't know what it means for you to know. Is it a feeling? Is it an aspiration? Is it a goal? Is it money? Is it what your parents told you Lee has to be? I'll never know. But deep down inside, there is something that's driving you that you have to answer to. And you haven't answered to that yet. Therefore, you haven't found it. And that is why we practice yoga. Because when I'm doing yoga, I'm asking you to do all this like crazy ass pose, like, you know, how you're in a class and like, I'll do a headstand, do a crow pose, and you're there and you swing like, what the fuck? I can't do this. Why am I here? Well, I can't even touch my toes. But for that 1 hour when you're practicing, you know what? You don't have to suffer. You're not here because you're present. You just be it. And after, I don't know how many months of you going to yoga, now you can do the crow pose. Now you can do the tree pose. That might not be your life goal, but because you were just there, you're showing up and you're present, you're practicing it. You're being, now you're one with it.
No, I mean, this is super fascinating because now you're making me rethink my entire relationship. Well, essentially you're telling us none of us know what the fuck like yoga is, right? I mean, because what we know of it mostly is like, oh, you go and you, get into these crazy stretches and it's good for you. But that's really where it stops for most of us. Like, unless somebody spends the time to dive deeper into, I guess, like the entirety of what it's supposed to be. Like, I didn't even know what yoga meant until you told me. So it's just like, I feel like I've never really even understood, or this is like a new kind of realization about what it potentially could do.
So I asked you guys about the Bhagavad Gita, right? And as I was talking to Andre Ram, who's once again this Dharma yoga teacher from Colombia, he pulled out the little book, Bhagavad Gita. It was this little torn up, it looked like a small dictionary, just like this thick, like a little square sandwich, right? And it's so ripped up. I'm like, Andre, why do you bring this book around everywhere you go? Because I reread it. I take it out and I read it again. Things that I didn't understand, I read it again. And I didn't understand more than a decade ago what this conversation was about, but now I completely understand it because I will take out the Bhagavad Gita and reread it, reread pages of it. And I realize, shit, I've unlocked another piece of wisdom. I've unlocked another piece of knowledge. Right? This is life. Your life will be different at every moment. And the more knowledge you get and the more inner work you do and the more wisdom you unlock, you'll look at the same place. You'll be in the same place and feel completely different about a person, about a situation. When I was going through all of this, I like to surf. I used to go on the ocean and there are surfers. There are plenty of surfers out there. And I would sit in the ocean and just look out. And I felt so lonely. I felt so hurt through this kind of like breakup, right? And I would just sit there and I would see, and I'm surfing and it looks like I was having a good time. I would just sit there. I would feel completely alone in amongst the crowd. And I go out to the same beach, the same wave now, and I surf. And it's a completely new feeling to it. I feel so at ease, at peace, and the oneness, if you will. So going back to it, this journey that each of you are having, whether you know where you're going or not, it doesn't matter. But you just need to do the inner work, remove the blockages, become a more pleasant person to be around. Then people around you will change. Everything around you will change. When we talk about vibes, right? Let me give you a quick question. Do you know why when I yawn, you yawn?
Because humans are social creatures.
Do any of you have dogs or cats?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have cats.
Okay. You guys all have dogs and cats? You know how you try to talk to your dog or your cat? Oh, baby, oh, Paul Hansen, I love you. You know how they always say like the pet is like the owner? So the reason why when I yawn, you yawn, or I talk about the pets, right, is because as human beings, we rely on our sympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system does not judge. It sympathizes. So when I'm yawning, it looks like it's contagious. You're yawning. Same as animals, right? I teach these dogas they call it doga, dog yoga in China. I didn't know how I got myself into it. But I was in Shanghai and somebody's like, hey, can you be the doga teacher? I'm like, sure, I love dogs. I don't mind doing something for charity. But one thing that I began to learn as I was teaching is pets are the same. They don't really have a rational structure within them, right? They rely heavily on their sympathetic nervous system. So therefore, how you treat them is basically a reflection of who you are, right? If your mind is all over the place and you're filled with bad vibes, your pet will be the same. If you're filled with love and compassion within and you're with judgment and you have great vibes, you're chill, you're easygoing, you're lovable, your pet will most likely be very much similar. So that's what I'm talking about in terms of inner work. You can't be one person inside and be another person outside, right? You can be two-faced, but you cannot lie about it. If you're the type of person who's filled with judgment about yourself all the time, how do you think you're going to talk with your friends? You're going to judge them all the time. Well, you're not going to know. You got problems. You got issues. But sometimes when you meet someone with good vibes, you're like, dude, that guy's got good vibes. That dude is probably inside feeling it too. He's like, oh yeah, I'm super chill. Whatever, man. Let's just be friends. Let's grab a beer. That's cool. So that is what vibes are. The cultivation of the inner world. It's not something you can pinpoint at. It's when you walk into a garden and you feel the trees, the wind is behind you, the smell, cultivating the vibe. That's what it is. That's what the inner world.
So you started this in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is run by finance. And I imagine that it's a quite stressful, rapidly changing, materialistic city. And I'd imagine that an introduction of what you are teaching and talking about probably is pretty new to that city, right? So I'd love to understand how you started introducing it and how you built this first in Hong Kong and now in Shanghai and a bunch of different cities in China, which is, I feel like, is also disconnected as well. Would love to hear how that happened and the reception to your ideas.
Yes. So actually that answers Lee's question. Lee, I didn't know I wanted to do this. I didn't know this was kind of like my calling. I was just doing it, just be. I just felt I had to do it. I had no goal in mind. Like I didn't start this thing hoping that it's going to be some. So I just did. I just be. So to answer your question, Will, I just started in a really casual manner. I'm like, okay, I'll do it at the park. We have a park called Tama Park out here, which is kind of like the Central Park, or it's kind of like, your Santa Monica Pier, if you will. And I found space. I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to offer some yoga here. At first, it was 2 people that joined, and then 2 became 4, 4 became 8, 8 became 16, and then it just multiplied to the point that I had like 40, 50 people out there coming to my class. And I didn't know why. And I didn't know that was a big deal, but apparently that was a big deal. You have so many people like just teaching outdoor and like people showing up, right? And people were telling me, why do you have so much fans? I'm like, they're not fans. They're just people showing up for some outdoor yoga for like $10 a pop. I don't know. But that's how it began in the most nonchalant way, right? And that's kind of who I am, right? Because I enjoy I think yoga should be done outdoor, especially for me. I like it with music. I like it super chill. There goes my cat. So that's how it began. And I didn't have to be anyone else. I was just being myself, right? And I shared my knowledge. I shared my vibes to people. And after that, I did it for maybe like less than a year. And AIA Insurance, which is, if you see Hong Kong as a big Ferris wheel, that's like the biggest insurance company in Hong Kong. And they heard about me. They're like, hey, we like what you do. Can you do some stuff for us? Because we're all about health and wellness, right? The insurance industry. So I'm like, whatever. I start kind of teaching at this, which is right next to Tama Park, this massive Ferris wheel. They have this like park there, right? And once again, I'm like, okay, well, here's the deal. I'll charge you so-and-so, and I'll do this community yoga there. And I show up, and the first time it was like 6 people, and by the 3rd time I did it, that park was completely packed out. And I called the IA. I'm like, dude, your park is not big enough. And it goes back to Lee's answer, right? Sometimes it's not up to you to define who you are. The people will define who you are. A lot of people show up to your class. You better admit to yourself that you are a yoga teacher. You can't tell anyone anything otherwise. So that's kind of the road, right? It will lead to an even funnier conversation about, is this life predetermined or is it about free will? So I did that. And then it was kind of like during the COVID lockdown. I was like, shit, this is crazy. The government keeps on locking down Hong Kong. Open, closing, open, closing. So I thought, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a break because I can't keep on like trying to do this outdoor thing that doesn't work. So I was like, I'm going to go to Shanghai and visit Brian and all my FF bros and just take a break. My best friend was working down in Shanghai too. So I go down to China and I go down to Shanghai. I'm like, okay, well, what am I going to do here? I didn't do anything for a while. I was like, for the first month, I was just kind of like, just like seeing, just like enjoying myself and monitoring and see what was going on in the city. Do they like yoga? I wasn't thinking of starting anything. And at that moment in time, I was meeting this health and wellness community who's kind of like myself in Hong Kong. And the right moment kind of came. And basically a girl who was doing kind of like what I do, but around sound healing said, oh, I need to raise money for this guy. He's got no money for brain surgery. I was like, okay, this will be my first class in China. So I did it. And I think FF joined in like the Shanghai Lodge. And I said, okay, I'm just going to donate my time. I'm going to teach a class and workshop around mindfulness. You guys can donate me money and I'll give all this money away to this guy who I didn't even know for brain surgery. And I did that. Shortly after I did that, because I was trying to pick the right moment to start on the right. Corporates around me, once again, like Nike was like my first client, came to me and said, oh shit, we heard about you. We heard about you from Hong Kong. Can you do something for us? Because they're all into trying to get into yoga business right now. And then sure enough, one after another, Google, WeWork, all the Fortune 500s in America that was situated in China, their head office were all there, was starting to ask me to do all these things. I was trying to also do the community thing, but actually that was difficult part. The community part was extremely difficult in China because there were 2 problems. One is that unlike in Hong Kong where you go from one place to another, like it might be a 20-minute drive or a 20-minute train ride, it was considered as okay. You just show up. But in Shanghai, anytime you're more than a 15-minute ride out in a taxi, it's considered far. So I would do it at the West Bund, where it's kind of like the pier, the Santa Monica Pier of LA. And I would do it there. And I did one class there and I had a few students there, maybe like 10. But then I would do it outdoor. And then there were like 30 people surrounding us taking photos of us. It was really weird. I was like, And that's never happened to you, right? But you just get all these like old, like Chinese guys who like trying to imitate you, like grandpas and grandmas, looking at me trying to teach yoga. So that turned out to be quite funny. So long story short, that's how it began, right? Once again, I didn't have like a business plan or anything like that. It's just showing up. And I was just being requested nonstop. And this whole dog yoga thing, same thing, like it was some Swedish girl asked me to do it. And I did it once for her and a lot of people showed up. And then in Shanghai, I guess word just travels fast. And then I became like the Doga teacher. And everyone was like, oh, this guy's not the Dharma teacher, it's a Doga teacher. All these like Doga classes, like free sessions, right, to help. And actually in Shanghai, the Shanghai Lodge, because of all of this also, we did this initiative last year to help like 10,000 dogs to find a new home. There's so many abandoned dogs out there in Shanghai, and these are all like pure breeds, huskies and what have you. And during COVID, a lot of people have to give them up. So I was trying to lend my skill set to the Shanghai Lodge to try to build this nonprofit to help this temple. So long story short, that's how.
COVID was probably pretty traumatic for a lot of the cities in Asia, especially Shanghai. And mental health, I think, is probably really important coming out of COVID, right? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Once again, to answer Lee's question, I didn't plan any of this, right? Unlike when I was in banking, it was about managing or control. All I did in banking was manage, control, manage an outcome. And I realized in 25 years I was there, like no matter how you manage an outcome and you get what you get, something's going to blow up. It's like a gasket, right? You pump in all this air and it's always going to blow out on the other side. So when I began kind of like this whole yoga journey, if you will, or this mindfulness journey, I was trying to remove these blockages from within me. I started letting go instead of controlling situations. And the more I let go, the better things became. It became bigger, became better. And when I had left Hong Kong to Shanghai, I was still running these classes with my other teachers, right, subbing me. And I realized that no one was really showing up. And I asked why. And for the first time, my students told me, they're like, well, it's because of you. That's why we show up. It's not really because of yoga. It's because of you, just being around you. And that was the first time I realized that they came for their mental wellness and not necessarily the yoga. And at that point, it was the first time realizing, as I'm touching more and more lives, right, that there were so many people that were suffering. Yoga can be such a lonely journey, right? You go in a group class and you think there's like 50 people there doing yoga with you, but you don't even know the person next to you on the mat. Right? You're going through this whole 1 hour of practice and you're sweating your balls off and you don't know any of the people around you. I was showing up to yoga almost like every day for like 2-3 years. And I didn't know the guy next to me. I saw him more than my mother. Right? So that's how crazy it is, right? But then once you start knowing these people and you know them for who they are, for their soul, and you get deeper than them, you realize everyone is going through such a hard time, like mentally. No one ever talks about their issues, right? You might be standing in a train, going to work, and the guy next to you wants to kill himself and you won't even know, right? We all are on the same journey, man. I tell you, I started doing men's circles. It started with yoga and now I teach mindfulness, which is kind of crazy, right? But I did this men's circle, which is just for men, right? Age from mid-30s to 50s. Let's just say the sample size is around 20 men, highly educated, Ivy League, doing well in the career. And I asked the question, how many of you have ever thought about suicide? Do you know what the percentage is?
I'd imagine it's pretty high.
Yes.
Close to 100?
I'd imagine it's pretty high.
Yes, close to 100. Every one of them at some point thought of jumping out that window and just letting it all go. Because these are the same people that have such high expectations for themselves, that failure is not an option. I asked the second question, what's the biggest failure in your life? Do you know what the majority was?
Relationships?
Lee, Andrew?
I was going to say maybe long-term relationship, significant other.
Career aspirations or financial, making money?
Okay. The majority was relationship, that they were not enough for the partner, even after they got married, even after they got rich. I mean, most said, oh, I was going bankrupt, I was going broke. I could never give the life that I promised I would give to my wife. And the wife's like, dude, I want Chanel and Prada and all that. And like, just chill, right? You don't have to give them all that to make it a real relationship. But it's the self-judgment that you impose on yourself, that I'm not good enough. I haven't made it. I'm not giving them the life that my family deserves. I'm not doing as good as I imagine myself to be. See, the root cause of unhappiness is your expectation versus your reality. That gap. If you wake up every day and say, oh, fuck, man, I didn't make it yet. I don't have that wife. I don't have that girlfriend. I don't have that job. I have that money. All you're doing is creating more unhappiness to yourself. Because you're judging yourself. You're like, my reality and the gap is so wide. So I talk about something cliche, self-love, which I teach all the time. Self-love is not like you going out or spending more money on yourself, buy a new car, eat all this great food, I love myself, oh yeah, fucking, I love you. That's not it. Self-love is when you look in the mirror and you accept yourself for everything that you are. Because in this life, the only perfection there is if you accept the good and the bad. Then this journey is perfect. If every moment you're like, oh, fucking didn't happen. Oh, I miss out on this great investment. He's doing so well. He's got a whole family. He's making so much money. That is not perfection. Perfection is when you accept the good and the bad. Everything that comes along your way and you're learning from it. And this knowledge becomes wisdom. You never let one point in your life define you. Most people think, oh, this is really bad. Like, I'm failing. This is going to be me for the rest of my life. That's just one point. And some people are like, oh, I'm at the peak of my life, career. I made it. This is not your life. That's just one point. It's like an investment, right? It's like when Apple's really cheap and now Apple's really high. Like you attach to something, you attach to an identity, you attach to a feeling, right? So you got to understand that in order to make this life enjoyable for you, because it doesn't matter what the goal is. You guys will always reach the goal, but are you enjoying this journey's process to it? When I was an analyst, I wanted to be an associate. When I was an associate, I wanted to become VP. A VP, I would be director. Director, I want to make an MD. And like, oh, I'm going to make MD. I'm going to buy this nice car. I made it. Man, my life, I'm the king of the fucking world. I make MD and I fucking hate my life because it's all politics. About the money. I just fucking hate every day going like, trying to take your business away. You're fighting all the time. When I was happy when I was an analyst, I was doing my own thing. I was like, hey, I'm having a beer, talk about how sad I am, but at least I enjoyed the work. Right. So it's true. Like, hey, money doesn't buy happiness. Money buys you necessities. But if you want to be happy, it's not going to be money. I've known people who've hugely successful, everything in their life, billionaire, going to be like be in the government, rise through the ranks. What do? They kill themselves. Why is suicide when you're at the top of your game, when you've got everything? Kurt Cobain, all these great artists, right? Linkin Park, all that, right? They got everything. They haven't dealt with all the traumas and triggers. They haven't removed the blockages yet. These blockages and these triggers you have, these traumas you have, if you don't spend time dealing with these devils within you and you take them out and you remove them, it will stay with you no matter at what age you are, no matter how successful you are. You haven't changed at all. The circumstances have changed, but what's within, you have not changed a single thing. And that's why we call it the inner world.
So Gene, can I ask, because you mentioned some of these conversations and realizations were initiated through talking to Andre, for one, right? And also you said because you're reading a lot more about it. So how did you begin to kind of dive into understanding and letting go? What was that journey of letting go of those blockages and, being able to, I guess, identify first and then work through them, getting to the point that you are now?
Do you know what's the worst way to learn anything in life?
To read.
Listening to someone else tell you how to do it?
I'm laughing because I want to know where you come up with your questions. That's what I want to know. Like, this is amazing. Please tell us. That's why I was laughing. I was like, phenomenal. I can't wait to find out.
Buying a book and reading it. That's the worst thing. When I worked in Morgan Stanley, when I worked in JPMorgan, we met Jamie Dimon because our department was doing so well. And that's the first thing he did. You know what's the worst way to do anything? You know what's one worst thing that every American do? When they have a problem, they go buy a book. And that was less like 20 years ago, or when I heard that. Not until I actually understand it now. But do you know what's the best way to learn anything in life?
Go do it.
To fail.
Yeah, do it yourself.
Teach it.
Teach it. Teach it. In teachers, we always have a saying, through teaching, you learn. So to answer your question, Lee, it's true. I didn't start this whole thinking it's going to be a business or a product. I did this for myself. I'm not doing this for anyone else, dude. I'm doing it for myself. I need to heal myself. Remember the beginning of the story? I just want to become better. I just want to be better. I want to be better for everyone around me. I want to be better for the people I love. Because I'm just so sick of hurting people, right? These relationships, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. You might have such great intentions, but because of lack of control, the lack of emotional control and the issues within, you always end up blowing up. You end up always passing all the hurt from you to other people that you love, right? So it started off as just wanting to heal myself. And I didn't know how to do it, but I just showed up every day at you. And I was willing to get the knowledge. And what the knowledge taught me, and I'm really grateful and thankful, because in yoga is kind of like Buddhism, basically. It's very much similar. You learn about letting go. You learn about letting go of the ego. Stop attaching yourself. Self-reflection. You know how Nike, they always say, oh, be the witness? Well, that shit is super spiritual, right? You know how when you're going through a really bad moment, And you guys are all really smart people. You guys probably have like the best advice for your friends. Like, oh shit, dude, I didn't solve your problem, no problem. But when it comes to your own problem, you're like, shit, like deer in the headlight, you can't do anything. In yoga, we have a practice called duality, removing the self. I start standing away and stop observing myself. Because when I observe myself and I take the ego out, I can give myself the best advice. So that's the practice, is to do it bit by bit. There was never a quick fix. I always tell my students, I tell you, I got some really over the top students. They do ayahuasca like 18 times, is, wherever it does it for them. But I always tell them in this journey, right, there's never a quick fix, but there is a practice. If you're willing to go back in the mat, if you're willing to go back onto the course or the basketball court, wherever it is that you guys do daily, and you formulate this practice, you will get there. It's kind of like, I guess, with Kobe or Michael Jordan making those shots, right? Doesn't matter whether you miss or you don't, but you just show up. Showing up is 90% of it, right? And not caring about the outcome, not being afraid of the outcome. So Lee, that was what it was. I got the knowledge and I kept on practicing. And every time I read the Bhagavad Gita again, I truly understood what it was trying to tell me. So even though you're on the same yoga mat at different times, it's going to feel different because now you're constantly detaching. The more you let go, remember the first conversation I had with that private equity Dharma yoga guy? It's like, you just let go. You're not being as angry. I was like, what are you talking about? Is that all I'm getting? Well, now I truly understand. Not attaching, not letting it get to you is 95%. That you will never be affected. Because once you're not affected, you can always be the best version of yourself to the people you love and not drive them away, drive them crazy. Whether you're a better colleague, better boss, better brother, better son, better partner.
You've talked a lot about a lot of different things, whether it's mindfulness, love and compassion, yoga, and breath work. Do you mind just helping me understand, do people come for the yoga, the physical part, and then as they're coming for the physical part, they get the mindfulness? Or could you just describe what that process is like and maybe just help me understand exactly what these terms are?
In yoga, we have a saying, when you're ready, your teacher shows up. It's not the other way around. Your teacher doesn't show up all of a sudden. You have to be ready. You have to have done the work and said, I'm ready. Then all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is a teacher, right? So that is the process. That's the process. When you truly are willing and you want it, then the journey will truly begin for you. And as I mentioned, that's why I just want to become better. So it started off with just, doing yoga, right? And yoga, one thing led me to another because you start to unfold all these cards of knowledge. A friend of mine recently witnessed his friend die in a motorcycle accident. Head collision, boom. Whole life was gone at 36. It was a top banker, just gone. He had massive PTSD from it. He was looking for help all sorts of ways. Didn't know, like, where do you go for help? Do you go to a psychiatrist? People usually go to a psychiatrist. You go for a few times, you're like, it didn't work. Trying to uncover all these new ways of healing. And sure enough, he goes to this like really new class, goes for a 3 class, comes out still sad, says, none of it worked. So I told him, go back to the wisdom that's been around for ages. See, everything we have right now is a derivative from it. People talk about self-love, compassion, all that. That stems from the word ahimsa. Ahimsa is a Sanskrit that's been around for hundreds and thousands of years. That means nonviolence. So going forward is to go back for me. To learn something new like yoga, it allowed me to go backwards and find my heritage, my culture, to appreciate the Buddhism, the Zen, if you will, that we grew up. I always say like spiritualism to me, it used to be just kind of like, oh, I ignored it. But yeah, I know it's around. I know I have to go to the temple every Chinese New Year, but it didn't mean anything to me. But now when I go back to the same temple, it means a lot to me because now I'm opening up these old things that I'm learning, the wisdom from the Confucianism and Hinduism would have, right? And once you start opening that, you're being pushed into this new realm. Like people are telling, oh, let's do Wim Hof, breath work. You realize breath work is just from pranayama. Pranayama is from Qigong, which has always been in our backyard. I walk around telling you these old people like doing Qigong, like, okay, whatever, that's Qigong. That's what we're doing now, pranayama. There's a guy, Wim Hof, walking up to Mount Everest in his underwear. That's all from Qigong. That's all what the monks used to do. So the knowledge unfolds step by step, all right? Instead of telling you, we're going to do something today fun. Have you guys done Wim Hof?
I have, but yeah. Let's do it.
No, I haven't.
I tried it before. Have you done Wim Hof? Everyone's done Wim Hof here? Lee? Yeah, I've tried it before. Okay. Which part of Wim Hof did you guys do? You guys did the ice bucket, did the whole, like,
the breathing part, yeah.
Yeah, the breathing part.
Okay. So lying down breathing and holding your breath.
I wasn't lying down, but yes, I was basically holding my breath, and then like I got really lightheaded from breathing really, really heavily. Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, we're going to do it again today, but you're going to lie down. You're actually not supposed to stand up. You could fall. All right. So this is what we're going to do today. It's going to be fun, especially for Andrew because he's never done it before. So watch me first. All right. Left hand on your stomach, right hand on your chest. All right. You're going to lie down. You can sit down if you want, but you're going to feel very dizzy. So you might pass out. So make sure there's no objects around you. That'll hurt you. Okay. And all you're going to do, we're going to do a simplified version of it, is we're going to go into 20 breaths, right? So we'll go as hard as you can. So I want you to see your stomach like basically expand and contract, right? And in your 20th breath, you can exhale all your air out, okay? And hold your breath. Hold your breath for as long as you can. And once you run out of breath, I want you to just raise your hand and I'll call your time of how long you held it. Okay. And once you run out of breath, what do? You take one breath in and then just gently let it out over like 10 seconds, something like that. Okay. So once again, very simple. Left hand on your stomach, right hand on your chest. You're going to hyperventilate 20 times. I want to hear you breathe. Okay. And on the 20th time, I'll say, exhale all the air out and hold your breath. And when you run out of breath, just raise your hand. I'll call your time out and take one breath in and exhale. Okay. So once again, when you hold your breath, you exhaled all your breath out. You're not, on your 20th breath, you're exhale all your breath out and then just hold your breath. All right. You're not inhaling on your 20th. You're exhale. Okay. All right. Everyone's got it? No, any questions? Okay. We'll start now. I'll do the count. You can close your eyes wherever you want to do. All right. 3, 2, 1, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Exhale all your air out. Hold your breath. When you're done, just raise your hand and take one breath. One minute. 103. $127. Wow, very good. Okay. So Will and Andrew had the same time, which is around 103, and I think Lee had 129. Okay. So just rest a little bit. We'll do another session. All right, drink some water, just relax.
Can you just tell the audience like what this breathing exercise does?
Okay. Well, Wim Hof is basically developed by this guy. He's famous. His name is Wim Hof. And actually he went through, I think, very similar situation where his wife passed away. He was in full depression and he had cancer. So he figured a way out. I think he's a little bit of a yogi to basically deal with his pain and deal with his mindfulness to be completely present. See, all of you are really hot now, right? Because your blood is flowing. But what inadvertently it did is that healed him. So let me ask you guys, do you know how cancer is caused?
No.
Cell mutation.
Okay. Any other?
I guess holistically through stress.
Yeah. Stress is probably one of the biggest contributors to it. It's a normal balance between the white and the red blood cell, right? So when you over oxygenate, you're trying to balance it, right? Alkaline it. So that's what's happening. So that's why Qigong, pranayama started in China and India, and now we call it breathwork in America and the West, has such a big impact on your health, if you will, and your mindfulness. But we'll talk about the mindfulness a little bit later, right? Okay. Second time, sit down, lie down if you have to, left hand on your stomach, right hand on your chest. All right. So remember your own times, right? 103 for Andrew and Will. I think it was 127 or 120. Yeah, 127 for Lee. Okay. 3, 2, 1, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. They're all your out. One 13, 121,
Damn, Lee. Holy
145.
shit.
Wow, amazing.
Wow.
Amazing. So regain your breath, just relax a little bit before we start. So that was the last time we did. Usually we'll do 3 times, but you guys are all heating up now. You guys can walk out into the cold, what have you. But let me ask you, what went through your mind during the breathwork session? Yeah. Give me some words to describe how you felt.
The mental or the physical?
Let's talk about the physical and the mental, both.
I think for me, I know that typically for most strenuous exertions, I can always usually go longer than I believe I can. So A, I'm trying to keep myself calm. And then B, I'm trying to convince myself that I have more to give. So I feel like if I feel like I'm about to stop, I know I have maybe 5 or 10 more seconds.
So is that your mind or is that your physical? That's what's going through your mind. You're pushing it, right?
Yeah, because I feel like my mind is stronger than my physical, or it should be. So I believe that even though my body might be telling me it can't go anymore, I think I can will myself.
Where is the state of your mind when you're there?
Extreme focus, I would say. If I let it wander, I think I'll just lose it.
So you're very focused. Will and Andrew?
So the mental, a lot of it is like, at first it was like, oh man, this is hard. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, this is actually quite easy. Like I can go on forever. And then it's like, oh crap, I'm going to embarrass myself because nobody's raised their hand yet. And then I just go, I raise my hand. That is like the mental. The physical is like, I'm really hot right now. Like I'm like sweating. And there's like a tingling sensation, but I feel like very energized.
Yep. Yes. And Andrew, what about you?
I was hanging out. I didn't like the idea that it was a contest, so I was just enjoying it, and I was kind of hanging out. I was also annoyed that this just reminds me of when we were kids and we do this in the pool. So I don't like that I have to breathe out and then hold it, because I hold it without breathing out, and then I'd always let it out, and I could definitely last a lot longer. So if it was a contest, I was like, I'm screwing myself right now. So
where's your mental state at, Andrew? Like the state?
I was really just hanging out, just trying to be as relaxed as possible. Like it wasn't focused on anything else. It was just, being relaxed because that's how you hold your breath longer. Yeah. You just have to be like chilled out and relaxed.
And what about you, Will? Your state? Can you talk a state of your mind?
At first it was in panic mode. And then it was in like very relaxed mode. Basically, it's like, okay, I can actually hang out here for a pretty long time. Then I realized I actually can't hang out here for a very long time. And then I started getting into panic mode.
Okay. Well, it's good. See, the three of you, once again, shared the same universe, but a multi-dimensional reality, right? Somewhat of a different result and different state. It's more about the state. And the reason why I wanted to do this very quickly is because this is also a part of self-realization, is knowing who you are during fight or flight situations. Are you focused? Do you hang out? Do you push yourself further? Right. You can learn from this very moment how you react in your fight and flight situation. Right? Some are fighters, some people run, and that's okay. Right. Secondly, focus, being here, presentness. The reason I wanted you to do it because, Will, you asked me, well, what is breathwork? What is all this? You see, in all of us, we all have a different practice to present and mindfulness. Some is yoga, some is breathwork, some is meditation. Wherever you do, as long as you're completely focused, completely present, that is your practice. That is the one practice you resonate with, that you go back to all the time. Now, Wim Hof is a very short breath one, but if we did a much longer one, like a circular breath and all that, people start crying and yelling and screaming. It's crazy. You have no idea. Like when I ask people to meditate, people are completely afraid of just closing their eyes and losing control. So each person reacts very, very differently, but it's such a basic thing that this is the very moment, whether it was a minute or 2 minutes that you guys just held. For that 1 minute, 2 minutes, you didn't have to suffer. You didn't have to live in this mind, and you're just right here because you're just trying to survive. So one small technique that I like to teach people, right, is called the Dharma breath. If you ever catch yourself in a bad thought, you know, when you're in a bad train of thought, you start from somebody pissed you off, maybe it's your friend, and you start thinking about your sister, you start thinking about your girlfriend, you start thinking about your father, your mother, your dog, and it just leaves you. By the time you're done, you're like 2 hours in it, and you're somewhere else, you're just feeling terrible about everything that's ever happened in your life. Break that negativity. First, you got to witness and know that you're going through it. Second, hold your breath right away. Because the moment you hold your breath, your mind is not here anymore. Your mind is just right here. So I hope that answers your question. In every different practice we do, all we're seeking for is presentness. For yoga, for me, yoga has probably the biggest impact because I enjoy going through the flow. I enjoy doing really difficult poses also because that allows my mind to be really, really focused, right? And I always say the practice for me is this. At every sunset, there should be closure. So that every sunrise, there should be hope. Don't take all your unhappiness from work, from the day, into your home. Don't take the shit into your home. Don't take the shit to your friends. Make sure you have a practice that every evening that's going to close out the day, that you're mindful, that you're present. Leave all the shit outside because you're going to ruin whatever goodness you have in you or a great relationship you have when you bring home. And that's what I did when I was in bank, right? Every morning, wake up with hope. That's the one thing people can't take away from your smile and your hope. Condition yourself to be that way because you guys are on a journey. You guys are trying to do something in your own. And the only thing that you need to make sure that's in check is your mind. So going back to, like I said, where different types of health and wellness you decide to do. Some people's ecstatic dance, if you've never heard of it. It's when people start dancing randomly, then close your eyes just to music, right? Some people even do contact dance, which I recently learned is at any one point, there's one point of your body that you need to touch with your partner to do this dance. But all this surrounds the same thing. It's about focus and presentness and mindfulness. It's like running. For a lot of people, running is very meditative. Right? Focus. You're pushing yourself. Oh, I don't have enough breath. I don't have it in me. I push myself forward. I keep on running. I keep on. Right? So wherever you do and practice in life, if you're fully focused and you're very present, that is your mindfulness.
Can you talk a little bit about the sound healing that you do?
Yes, sound healing. So sound healing, how many of you have done sound healing before?
I've been in a room where they played the instruments before.
I've seen videos of it, but not actually. Okay. I don't think I've been in it.
Same. Okay. You know how when you go in a doctor, I don't know if you guys, you go to a doctor and he takes out this little tuning fork and he hits you with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, tuning, like, what's this guy doing, dude? Do you know what he's doing?
Getting the vibration.
Yeah, but why?
Wasn't it to like test a reflex?
With a tuning fork?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Is there something about the sound frequency that...
Correct.
Okay.
So that's why they use a tuning fork and not a hammer, right? Because the sound that a tuning fork makes basically tells the doctor, well, whether you have a problem or not. So sound healing is real. It's been around for ages. All these instruments, Tibetan sing bowl, the Tibetan sing bowl, the one that you go out and it's like vibrating. This stuff has been around for hundreds of years, created by the Tibetans, right? Or the gong as we know now, right? Or the sing bowls. All this was developed hundreds of years ago as a tuning fork to heal you. Because back then there was no technology. So therefore the doctors, they use instruments like this, vibration to cure what's within. And it can go in a wide range. I have a student who learned how to play the gong up to a point she cured her own cancer because of the vibration. Like it basically, wherever tumor she had started to shrink over time. So sound healing is truly for healing. It's not like people just lie there and just like sleep, although you can all do that. If you've never done it before, I had an experience once when I first began this journey. I had anxiety in the sound healing class. Like that vibration for me was completely off and I wanted to throw up. My stomach inside was like vibrating nonstop, right? Because 80% of us is made with liquid within, as you know, the blood, right? So when that stuff starts vibrating, right, and it starts shifting you around within, removing these blockages, you feel very, very uncomfortable, right? And that is probably the best way to tell where you are in terms of your wellness, your health and wellness. So I highly recommend you guys go into, but a real teacher, right? Either use this crystal sing bowl or Tibetan sing bowl or the gong, right? If you want to try. But that is to basically heal what's within you. And some of you might feel very, very uncomfortable the first time you try it. It's like tuning.
So you've created a group that does this, right? OM Collective?
Yeah. OM Collective. Yeah. That was very interesting. When I first began this, I was, all into like creating these kind of like really authentic yet interesting wellness experiences. And I met these like 7 different, well, including myself as 7, but these 6 different sound healers at different times. And one day I said, well, why don't we all just meet and come together and let's jam and let's see what comes out from it. After one time, it just felt right. The vibes are right. And I said, well, why don't we get together and just create a sound healing band? And that's when the idea of OM Collective came in. And ever since then, it's been 4 years. We performed many different concerts, mainly in Hong Kong. So that is basically grouping a bunch of sound healers together and creating this sound healing experience for a community.
As someone that's like trying to become more mindful and trying to, work on their mental health, how does one start their journey?
The fact that you guys want it is the beginning of the journey already. Now is to uncover the knowledge. I said, only when you're ready will your teacher show up, right? I might tell you yoga is the best thing in my life, but it may not be for you. You might step in a sound healing studio and listen to a gong and say, this is it. This is my calling, right? So for everyone is a bit different, but the journey is the same, right? You have to first find what do you resonate with. Is it breathwork? Is it yoga? Is it meditation? Is it sound healing? Is it dancing? Is it mindfulness eating? What resonates with you? And once you find that one practice that you like a lot, you go back to it all the time. And as you're going back to it all the time, now your teacher shows up because you're ready and you're willing to commit. You're willing to look for knowledges. In this life, the one key advice I want to give to you guys before we finish this talk today is that go back to your roots to discover who you are, to find out, right? Stop looking outward, go within, right? There's too much media around us. There's too much social media. There's too much TV. There's too much Netflixing. There's too many new things. Oh, here's a new fasting you gotta do. Here's a new thing you must do. Stop focusing on the new. Go back to what's within the ancient times and rediscover that. You might find your practice. You probably will. But it has to start off with every day willing to commit to creating a space for yourself where you're complete quiet. You're not looking at your phone. You're focusing on a practice that allows you to be present. That is the beginning of your journey. Then through that, you will find which practice is right for you. Then you'll look for that studio. You'll look for that teacher. Because this is the one investment you'll never regret in life. If you can organize this, you can do anything in life. You want to be rich? Well, organize this. You want to be successful? Organize this. You want to have a great relationship with your partner, find a great partner in life? Fix this first. Fix what's within first. Because if you're filled with blockages, no matter what you do in life, you will never be able to receive the goodness. Somebody might, in Chinese, we always say, 財神到, right? When the money god shows up. Can you recognize him when he shows up? If somebody's trying to do something good for you and you're full of blockage, oh, this guy, there's something wrong. This guy's got a scam. He's got an angle. He's got something. He wants money. You know what? It doesn't matter who shows up in your life. Even the right person shows up in your life that can benefit you. You will not be able to receive them because you're just filled with all this judgment and all this preconception. That's why you have to be love and compassionate. You have to be open and not closed. You got to stop creating all these boundaries around you. Be open and be receptive to the grace of God or a friend or someone good. Be receptive. And be receptive means you have to go within and trust what's within. Every one of you have a special power that you may or may not know about, that you have not cultivated yet. We're all born with special talents, but in this society, we're taught you go to school, you get a job, you might go back to MBA, you get married. Everything else, not important. But I'm telling you that if you can unlock the wisdom within you, everything will fall into place. Everything will unlock. You get exactly what is that you've been searching for. And everyone is different. So spend time on the inner work, right? Find that one practice that resonates with you and then go deeper. Find a teacher. You guys look fine from the outside. You guys tall, handsome, everyone's sporty, everyone's got that education. You talk well. I'm sure you guys are great minds, but work what's within. Fix that. Then I promise you, the next time we have this conversation, maybe a year or 2 years from now, 3 years from now, you will not have that same issue again. And today, the homework for the three of you, before I sign off, is to write down that one thing that you want to remove, that one blockage, that one block, right? Journal it down that you're going to work on. And then after that, you can come to me and maybe I can give some advice. Search for that mindfulness practice that will help you remove all these internal blockages. And let's just say that blockage is internal judgment of being too hard on yourself. So you look for that non-attachment. And most of it is probably Buddhism and Hinduism. Stop identifying. So I always make this joke. I tell my FF bros, I've been an FF bros for over 20 years now. And I say, don't be too attached to an identity of what FF is. I mean, I love my FF brother, but I'm not attached to the identity. Because if you're attached to it, you're expecting some sort of great thing to help. Like we represent some. But the moment that it doesn't represent that, you lose faith. And the moment you lose faith, you're like, fuck it, and you leave. I always say, whether you're in investments or what have you, never fall in love with stocks. Never attach to that asset that you can't control. I have students who are in crypto and they're the worst. When the stock falls, when the crypto falls, they're unhappy. When it goes up, they're nervous. How can that be life? Complete attached to an asset that has a volatility of, I don't know, like 100. I used to be in derivatives. I know. How can you be attached to an asset class that's so damn volatile and make that your life? Anyways, your homework for the three of you, write down the one blockage you want to remove, the one mistake that you keep on making that mistake over and over and over again in life. And I want you to observe that now. I want you to observe that mistake. Don't live it, observe it. Meditate or do your practice, but observe, witness what is going on there with you. Find that space. I think meditation is probably the best way as a beginning. Witness yourself, observe why do you keep on making the same issue. For some, it could be love. Through relationship. Why do I keep on losing my shit that I get triggered off when someone says it, when someone does it? observe it, and then understand it, and do not be attached to it. And then you're going to start seeing the knowledge and the wisdom unlock. And you will realize, oh, so this is me. These are my triggers. These are my traumas. These are things that I don't like. But go back to the roots of it. It's hard for me to teach you everything in one go because that's why I teach these like mindfulness workshops. Maybe one day I can host it for you guys online. And I've done some stuff, especially during lockdown for people online. But the journey is now.
Gene, thank you so much. How can people find you if they wanted to learn more from you?
You can find me on Better Me NYC, and that's one word. It has 2 green circles on it, right? In the link bio, it goes into my webpage, and you'll see all the services there. You can always DM me, and I will probably move you to a WhatsApp, and we can speak there. For the online stuff right now, like I said, it's more enclosed for particular communities. Like I do in Japan, is for just a Japanese community. Therefore, I don't publish it. I don't open it up because I try to put people who are more like-minded together. So if you feel that this is something that you want to start learning, just DM me and let me know and we can organize something. Usually in these sessions, what I do is today we did a lot of Dharma talk. Dharma talk is when we are focused on talking about mindfulness, if you will, or subjects around that. And we will usually do a visualization meditation, which we didn't get a chance to do today. We may mix in some breathwork, maybe some gentle stretches, but it all basically comes into one class where I think at the end of class, what you get away from it is you start unlocking these kind of knowledges within you. And through the practice, this knowledge will become your wisdom.
Gene, thank you so much for your generosity, spending all this time with us. Really appreciate it.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel extremely inspired and I feel good after that breathwork.
That breathwork felt really good.
Hopefully, this is the start of our journeys for me, Andrew, and Will.
I wish all of you guys a wonderful journey ahead. And I'll say this one more, not without being cliche. Namaste. So when I say namaste, well, actually what namaste means is I see you and me. And the reason why it's relevant is because only when you're filled with love and compassion do you see the same as other people. If you're filled with judgment and negativity, everyone around you that you see will be the same.
Namaste.
Namaste. So next time if they say it in class, know the meaning.
All right. Thank you so much.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Thank you so much for listening until the end. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It'll help more people like you find us. You can find more about us on wild.show, WLD.SHOW. Please subscribe to our newsletter or DM us on Twitter. We'd love to get to know you.